Today's episode of the Nick Taylor Horror Show is brought to you by Diabolic DVD. For almost 20 years, Diabolic DVD has been the source for horror, cult, and weird cinema to customers around the world. Diabolic offers a one-stop shopping experience for all of your favorite labels, including Arrow, Synapse, Vinegar Syndrome, Severin, Mondo Macabro, Blue Underground, 88, and many more from all corners of the globe. So whether you're looking for the definitive version of Suspiria or trying to upgrade your crusty old DVD of Cannibal Holocaust, Diabolic is the owner-operated small business choice you've been craving. Shop online at diabolicdvd.com. That's DIABOLIK DVD.com. We're also brought to you by Deadly Grounds Coffee. It's the #1 choice of horror fans worldwide. Nothing starts your day or night better than a delicious cup of Deadly Grounds. Whether you're hunting ghosts or fighting the next zombie apocalypse, any one of Deadly's 30-plus roasts will bring you to caffeine nirvana with the richest flavor you've ever had. Whether you're craving their Hellhound Roast, Witch's Brew, Devil's Night Roast, or Sinful Delight, order online at getdeadly.com for easy and safe shipping right to your door. We know that once you go deadly, you won't go back. Join the deadly revolution today. Be bold, be different, be deadly. Deadly Grounds Coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. Get some at getdeadly.com. Welcome to the Nick Taylor Horror Show. All right, so strap in because we're going non-horror for this episode. But trust me, it's borderline horror adjacent. FATMAN is the new movie from the Nelms Brothers. FATMAN is I don't even know where to begin, a retelling on the Santa Claus myth starring Mel Gibson as a grizzled old Santa Claus who somehow gets marked by a hitman played by Walt Goggins. This extremely outlandish concept miraculously became a movie, and an awesome one at that, and it is all because of Ian and Eshom Nelms. Now, this episode is very, very different in how it's less interview style, and it is more just this big, long story about how Ian and Eshom became directors. And this is probably one of my favorite conversations because it's just this big, long, but highly detailed, highly elaborate story about how these guys went from making their first feature, which cost $1,500. Yes, $1,500 they made a feature for. And one thing led to another, and here they are directing big action movies with Mel Gibson. There was very little editing in this episode. In fact, there was just about no editing because this just felt like a fun fireside conversation with these guys, and I just want to let them tell their story. It is just such a fundamental series of filmmaking lessons, and I really think you guys will enjoy it. If you are a filmmaker, this is a particularly important episode to listen to. These guys are very much the real deal. They busted their asses to get to where they are, and this conversation basically illuminates every single step of the way, every step of their filmmaking journey, and I really got a lot out of it, and I hope you will too. So, without further ado, here are the Nelms Brothers. Hey there, guys. How's everything going?
We're good, man. How are you, Nick?
I am doing good. Really good. I feel like I am properly ringing in the holiday season with FATMAN.
Awesome.
Yeah, I like, it's rare that you have a holiday movie that has a lot of holiday cheer to it, but also a ton of grit. So that's one of the things that I loved about this movie. So, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, and I feel like this is on the mind of a lot of people who hear the plot of this film, how did this movie possibly come together?
Well, you're talking about the elements that actually went into like producing the movie, or the story, like how we came up with the plot.
Well, mostly, yeah, I definitely want to get into the plot, but also, Bill, mostly, how did you get this off the ground? Because it's hard to imagine in a board meeting where executive producers are saying yes, are greenlighting this concept. But I wish we lived in a world where it was easier. But yeah, how did the movie get off of the ground?
So this one was definitely a marathon.
Yeah.
It's been a at least 14-year journey to get it to
I
actually
think we wrote
on the
it
screen.
17 years ago, but it's been in good enough shape, and we've been in a certain level of room to be able to try to get it going for about 14 years. And throughout the course of pitching it for 14 years, we finally got it going.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of those early meetings we got, they just wanted to see the sort of psychopaths that would walk through the door that would tell this yarn. But people, in all seriousness, we would sit down and people would say, you know what, this script excites us.
Yeah.
Someone's going to make this one of these days. I don't know if it's going to be you, but
we would be like, why not? Like, why can't we make it? This is
Yeah.
right into town. And they were like, well, it's director dependent. They're like, you look at the tone of the film and it's ambiguous when you read it. Like,
is this heightened comedy? Is this gritty drama? Like, what is this?
Unclassifiable.
Yeah, like, how are you going to play this? So they said you have to have something, of note to sort of be able to classify and be able to say, hey, point back and say, hey, it's like this tone. Because they would say, what tone is this? And we're like, well, it's on the page. Like, you can read it. It's funny. It's got a little westerny. It's got drama. It's heart. It's got heart in it. Like, it's a bit of a commentary. They're like, oh, well, okay. But like, I don't know what that looks like.
So, for the past, 15 years of our career, we've been making movies, writing movies. And then with Small Town Crime, we finally got something that was equatable to the tone of FATMAN.
Okay.
And that's what sort of got the engine running.
Yeah, we were able to point back to Small Town Crime and say, it's like that.
Interesting.
It's like that one.
So that movie was kind of a bridge to making this movie. And I'm assuming that you wrote FATMAN way before you wrote Small Town Crime.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly. Yeah. Like I said, we wrote FATMAN, 17 years ago, 14 years ago, got into something great, into some shape that we could actually, present it. And then
like a decade later, we wrote
Small Town Crime, maybe in 2012, something.
2012-ish.
Yeah.
I think 2012-ish.
Gotcha.
And Ian and I had some luck with some really nano budget movies in the beginning of our careers, and we got representation, and they were like, okay, then you need to stop making these little movies. The next movie you're going to
make. When he says luck with them, it wasn't. We never got into Sundance. We never got in. We weren't those guys. We just weren't those guys. We didn't have the Sundance story.
Yeah.
Our first movie was a $1,500 movie, feature film.
Whoa.
And it got into at the time. It got into Palm Beach International Film Festival, which was a top 20 at the time. And so they had like Woody Harrelson and Bai Ling and all these wonderful stars that had movies in that festival there at the time. We were just like, oh my God, we have a $1,500 feature film. And like the other people that were there with us in the feature film category all had films that had cost at least six figures.
Yeah.
And I remember just going to those, they have all those little filmmaker meetings and filmmaker data, and they would be like, oh, hey, what film is yours? And you're shaking everybody's hand, meeting everybody. And we're like, oh, we're it's called Squirrel Trap. We're like, hey, we're Squirrel Trap. And they're like, oh, the Squirrel Trap boys. Guys, what are you, 12? We're in our
bright-eyed and bushy tail.
Early 20s. We're in our early 20s. And they would be like, what are you, 12? How did you guys make a movie? And we were like, well,
I got in a car wreck.
Yeah.
And instead of fixing my car, I took the money and we bought this DVX 100 camera and we shot a movie in 7 days and we put it together on our computer.
And we cast it out of Tony Roma's, where I was working, Place for Ribs. And Esh was working at ArcLight movie theater, making $7 an hour. And we cast it out of those two places because in LA, they're firing actors there. We thought we had some great ones, and so we just pulled them straight out of there.
Wow.
Cast the movie up with them, and then went back home with them, took them back home, and we lived about 30 minutes from the Sequoia Forest. So we went and shot right on the edge of that park, which our family's secret spot.
And when Ian said home, we took him up to our where we grew up.
Okay, got it.
Central Valley, California.
Yeah, so we took him back to our hometown, and we shot a movie 20, 30 minutes away in the Sequoia, right at the edge of the Sequoia Forest, about a bunch of junior college students who went off to write a paper on Thoreau on like a 4-day weekend.
Wow. $1,400. That's insane. I just had a conversation with Jordan Downey, who did $1,500. Sorry. I just had a conversation with Jordan Downey, who did The Headhunter, which was a horror movie that came out. It was like $40,000. It looked amazing. His first movie cost $4,000. Thanksgiving. Yeah. That's the lowest I've heard so far. But you guys did a feature for $1,500, which is.
I don't think it's a contest to see how low you can make it.
How low you can go.
We didn't know any better, right? So we hired actors. They all came and did it for free. We did it for free. I mean, we paid money to do it.
Yeah.
And everybody was just hungry and ambitious and wanted to do it. And we were just making it with friends. And we were like, hey, you're working hard. We're working hard. Let's go make something. They were like, yes. The only thing we had to do was feed and house everybody. And so we hired our mom, for free to.
You say hired.
Exactly. We hired our mom to cater the entire thing, and we paid the food budget, which was like $400. And luckily, our mom is a very down-home woman, and she can get down on $400 and cook for 10 people, or 7, 8 people. Was it 7 people? Maybe 7 people. But anyway, counting our parents, because with the crew was me, my brother, and my dad.
Okay.
And so one of us was always holding the mic or the camera. Esh and I, we just kind of traded off. And our dad was a professional photographer for like 20 some odd years.
Ooh.
And so he had some lighting knowledge.
Yeah.
And I remember when we told him, Dad, we're going to shoot this movie. Can we borrow your tripod? And he had this like tripod.
He had an old O'Connor in the garage.
Head in his garage. It was like from like 1907
or
something.
Yeah, it was like what they shot like the 3-strip Cinerama on.
Yeah,
so crazy.
We got a new head attachment that we could screw in the DVX 100. So it was on this like fucking tripod they scaled Everest with, and it was fucking amazing. The tripod was legit, and the camera was the latest digital technology that was about this big on top of it.
Whoa,
really
that's amazing.
So Dad was like, well, how are you going to like this? We're out in the woods for 7 days, because we had all the actors camp out in tents for 7 days straight.
Whoa.
And they were just like, fuck it, we're going method, They'd wake up and go swimming. And while we were getting everything set up, and our dad he's like, okay, well, the only way we're going to be able to, and Esh and I would run batteries. One of us would drive back and forth, and we bought like 15 batteries, and we would charge them up at night, drive back. Now that did not bode well for sleep, because we got about an hour of sleep a night, which was horrible.
Yeah.
But it only had to last a week. And so our dad lit the entire thing, and we had probably about a third of the movies at night. He lit the whole thing with a bounce card during the day, and then a Coleman lantern and the flashlights he bought at Walmart.
And a fire.
Wow. He had a fire at night as well. So he would lit the whole thing with that, about $30 worth of shit you buy at Walmart. And and we just basically simulated camping for 7 days and shot it and had them, interacting. And it's kind of a comedic thriller. So there's a lot of, character dialogue, hiking, talking,
but that was a
very humble,
humble.
A lot of us holding the camera, walking backwards, as they're delivering dialogue, trying, that was too shaky. I just tripped in a gopher hole. There's a lot of that.
Wow.
But they toughed it out with us, and then Esh and I had to figure out, we had to learn to edit on that movie. We had done a couple of shorts, but it wasn't anything where you're editing a feature together. So we edited the feature together on an iMac at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was completely inefficient after about 15 minutes of footage.
Well, it wasn't inefficient, but there was a frame drop that occurred that made the audio come out of sync.
Ooh.
And we also had to get a bigger computer, because once the timeline got too long, it was way too slow. We couldn't get it to play. That's what I meant by inefficient.
Yeah.
So we bought a new computer that was like $800 or something. It was like the new Mac something.
Mac Pro.
Yeah, that we could actually edit with. And then that's where the budget went, and that's how it went down.
Wow, that's amazing. $1,500. I mean, I feel like that's a story that really is indicative of the spirit of your first film. It's a bunch of people who are in it for the passion. You don't have the best lighting equipment. You're finding a way to make it work with Walmart and the people that you have immediate access to. But
yeah.
I feel like that story is indicative of multiple stories of first features, where I think the takeaway is you really have no excuse not to be making movies if you want to be making movies. Anybody can rack up $1,500 in credit card debt. I don't know if I recommend it, but it's like, there's a way to make a feature regardless of, your circumstances.
And especially now with like
your phone is better than the cameras we shot that early movie.
It's a lot better. And the only thing you have to worry about there is just downloading some app that you can control your iris and your focus, and maybe renting a couple of lenses for, pretty damn cheap. It's not like you're renting some, thousands of dollars for one lens. It's literally going to be, hey, $80 for the week, for that lens you put on your iPhone.
Yeah. Now there's nowadays, it seems like it is the best time to be making films, and there's so much of a demand for content. particularly during COVID. But yeah, I mean, with the way streaming is blowing up, I mean, it is a field day for filmmakers for sure. It feels that way anyway. Yeah,
you can create that quality. I think you can create a good enough quality. It'll be HD. It'll be it'll have depth of field, and and then all you just need to learn is some pretty basic lighting technique, and you can do it.
Yeah, and Soderbergh, he's done like 2 movies now with just his iPhone.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's pretty amazing, yeah. So yeah, there really is no excuse. But yeah, its story is awesome. So what happened after that? After that movie was released, you went to Palm Beach, Palm Springs.
Got into a couple film festivals. It got us some reviews, and we learned quickly, we
went and showed it at Palm Beach, and the first thing we came away with was like, okay, we got to come home and cut 10 minutes out of the movie.
Yeah.
While it was great to see people engaging and laughing at it felt long on the tooth. We're like, you instantly see objectively what's.
And we've never done that before.
Right.
We'd never screened it for anybody.
Never even screened it for anybody.
Just right to the film festival.
We barely finished it. We didn't even know what.
Honestly, we barely knew how to spit it out of the computer. We were just learning on the fly, and then we came back and we went to our place of work. And we're like, hey, we just went to a film festival, and these are all up and coming filmmakers that had gone to USC, working at ArcLight with me at the time, and hungry actors working at Tony Roma's with Ian.
And they were like, wait a minute, you made a feature film? Are you fucking kidding? And we're like, no, we made a feature film, $1,500, on a fucking Walmart budget and a movie theater job.
We gathered up a bunch of people from our places of work and went out and made another feature film called Night of the Dog. And that was more like a shortcuts. We got 4 other filmmakers besides ourselves, and we made this intercutting narrative that was 5 guys all dealing with women in the course of one night.
And that one was really fun because they were our friends at the time who were also aspiring filmmakers were like, I can't believe you guys made a movie. And we're like, well, we're ready to go do it again. And they're like, well, what are we going to do? And then we sat around, and at that time,
we had all gone through very painful breakups.
We'd all in that part of our lives where we just broke up with our girlfriends or had some kind of traumatic experience with a lady. And it was literally like, a bunch of men sitting around grousing about, I gotta get a date. And then it was, what are we going to write about? And of course, we choose this, okay, well, let's write about personal. Men dealing with women. It has to take course in the course of one night.
And the women always win.
And the women always win. That was like so it was very, emasculating.
Right.
So we went and shot that with that group, renegade style, on the streets of LA.
So we were literally.
No permits.
No permits.
Oh, no.
We just went out and started shooting, and it was literally like cops would pull up like, what are you guys doing? You guys have a permit? And we're all, no. And they're like,
better get done in 20 minutes.
Get the fuck out of here.
They'd be like, we're coming back in 20
They would
minutes.
literally say, you got 20 minutes to pack up your shit and leave. And we'd be like, okay, we can do that in 5. We got 15 minutes to shoot the rest of this scene.
Let's get the shot.
Drive off, and we'd go like crazy.
It was goofy stuff like, we would be on the beach shooting scenes, and we would just walk up to people partying on their patios and be like, hey, do you mind if we just plugged into that outlet and ran an extension cord 300 feet down the beach? And they're like, here's a bottle of wine.
Here's
like,
a bottle
go
of
have
wine.
fun.
Fuck it.
It's amazing, and I feel like people don't realize that when you're making a movie, depending on where you're filming, but magical things can happen. People can just come and they want to get swept up in the excitement of it, and these are all the things that young filmmakers need to take note of, or even older filmmakers, any filmmakers. But yeah,
for sure.
And so this film cost us, and the great thing about it is that we had 4 other people to share the burden of the cost of the film. So it was a $5,000 budget all in.
We each put about $1,000 in.
Yeah, everybody put about $1,000 ish into it, and we all basically shot, acted, directed. I was the only one that did not act because I didn't feel like I was strong enough to pull off what I'd written. But I hired 2 wonderful, wonderful guys out of Tony Roma's.
That's your casting studio,
as you do.
Yeah.
And then we were fortunate enough to go back to the festivals and win those with Night of the Dog.
Oh, wow.
We went back and we learned a ton off that first one because we realized that you need to pick it up. Like you got to get that entertainment value flowing.
And if you don't have production value, you got to be entertaining.
You got to be like, over here, we're over here, and hey, we're out. You like the movie was like 82 minutes long. It was a barn burner for 82 minutes, and you had, like everybody. It was like they were 20-minute shorts that we all kind of smushed together. And the beginning for. So everybody wrote their short, and they had nothing to do with each other except the theme. And then we were like, okay, well, how are we going to put all these together? Well, they all work in the same place. Okay, great. And then we all sat down and wrote the beginning, which took about 6 or 7 pages. And then we're like, well, how are we going to end it? And it was like, oh, we'll end it like this. And everybody sat down and wrote the 6 or 7 pages of how they all come back together at the end. So that was the fun part of it, is that everybody could go off and do whatever they wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like one guy went off on a crazy date, and one guy went off and accidentally killed somebody. Or one guy went off and was getting chased by his girlfriend in his underwear, and she's throwing phone books at him because she found his porn collection. And then one guy's got a racy neighbor that's trying to have sex with him while he's the nerd of the kind of house and the nerd of the apartment complex. And then he realizes his neighbors are swingers, you know, and they're trying to have sex with him. So everybody went off on all these like really fun ideas. That the only thing that they had in common.
The only stipulation was that it had to begin and end.
Yeah, beginning and end at the same place, and this theme running throughout it.
Very cool.
And we had a blast because it was like, you know, for all of our dearest friends working on that with us.
And that crew was just the people who wrote and directed and starred would crew on each other's stuff. So it was like a crew of like 4 or 5 people on each movie. So it was like that 4 or 5 people would crew my movie. That 4 or 5 people would crew Eshom's movie. And we would switch DPs, and everybody would DP, and everybody would light, and everybody would do sound. And if you weren't doing those most of the time, because the budget was so low, everyone's like, the other 3 people are sitting on the curb just watching and being like, well, if you need something, let me know. If you need an extra walk by, I'll walk by.
Yeah. Just you built a real community.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. And a lot of those folks we're still in contact with today.
Yeah, we still work with.
And still working with.
That's great. That's great. So after those first 2 films let's go chronologically. What happened next after Night of the Dog?
So that one like got, you know, Focus called, you know, because we had won a couple of these festivals with this little.
Like we won a big award at Santa Barbara. We won the audience award at like 5 other festivals, and it was like it was people were hearing about it, and they were like, okay, I got to see this. And the reviews, like Ain't It Cool News, which was a very high profile site at the time, came out and was like, hey, this shit is off the hook. Like you gotta fucking see this. They were for like Broken Lizards and like all those kind of comedy troupes at the time, even though they were making $5 million movies and we were making a $5,000 movie. So they were just, and those reviews were kind of like, hey, if somebody could give these poor bastards $1, they might be able to make something fucking great. And so I think those companies read that and were like, well, shit, let's see what they got.
Yeah.
And ultimately, those companies were kind of like, we would get all the way to the top, and it would be like a decision that literally like the head of the company, like head of acquisitions was making of like, okay, look, guys, I'm sorry, we're not going to pick it up just because the production value is so fucking low. It's incredibly entertaining, but what it did was it gave us, like, audiences were going crazy for it. We learned a lot from that film.
Yeah.
And we ended up getting the representation, and they tell us, the first thing they tell us is, hey, look, you need to stop making these scrappy little independent movies. The next movie you guys make
5 to 10 million.
It's going to be
5 to 10 million.
5 to 10 million.
And I think at the beginning, in the middle and beginning of the 2000s, like from 2000 to 2005, which is what this period is, that was totally feasible. And that's what you were seeing. You were seeing like a filmmaker come out with like a smaller film, usually 6 figures at that time, and then coming out and doing a $5 million movie next, get a little hype, and then boom, he would launch into some movie, starring whoever that would make a $5 million movie.
Right.
And you know what? That's, was the gift of those DVD revenue streams at the time. Those were still in place.
So we wrote for like 3 years, and we had one going with some amazing stars and some amazing producers. But it took 3 years to get there. But we finally had marched in, and it was right around 08. It was 08, not around. It was 08. And if you remember 08, the DVD market crashed. We had the financial crash.
Oh, yeah.
It was a writer's strike.
Yep.
And it was a fucking nightmare.
It was a wasteland in Los Angeles for independent filmmakers.
And so that all kind of went away, and it was literally like, we were hooked up. We were hooked up at a mini major making it, and they had given us a budget. We had stars, and we had great producers, and they were just kind of like, all right, look, like, I'm sorry, the bottom is falling out of this, of not only the economy but the DVD market. And they were like, this is no longer a $5 million film. You're going to have to do this for $2. And we were like,
and we couldn't make that one for $2. It was impossible.
I don't think there was too much. It was too much going on there. So they said, you got to write something. Our reps were like, write something you could do for $2. We're like, all right, we're going to write something we do that. So we go back and we write something that we could do for $2, which was actually Small Town Crime. We wrote Small Town Crime.
Okay.
And Small Town Crime we go out with that.
Right.
And right now, then it's like 2009. And if you remember, a year or two after, like this fucking financial crisis and the strike, there's no development money. There's no money coming in. There's no DVD revenue services. It's just looking bleaker and bleaker and bleaker. And now we go back out a year later with this script that all of our reps are excited about, and we're super pumped to do. It's about a $2 million budget, and they're like, okay, look, like all these
First-time
companies,
filmmakers, like no one's going to give first-time
quote.
filmmakers $2 million.
Well, no, we did 2 films. They're like, did you? They're like, the problem. They were saying the problem is that you've made 2 movies without star power. I don't even see a face I recognize in there. Although they're entertaining, it doesn't tell me you can work with an actor of a certain caliber. And we're like, oh, okay, we didn't know that was a thing. So then, and it's not, who says it is? I don't know.
Yeah,
that's not always the
It was
caliber.
a thing for them at that moment.
right.
Yeah. That was what they were justifying.
There were stars
So
in Clerks.
Yeah,
Good
you know
point.
what? And like,
Good point.
I don't know if that was the same environment, because look, Clerks came about at a time where the
15 years
DVD,
earlier,
VHS
yeah.
market, rental market was still in play.
Right,
And
right.
It's getting into this time where it's like,
I need some security. I need some risk. You know, I need to curb that risk. And how do we do it?
Yeah.
We got to get some faces in here.
Yeah.
We got to get this. We got to get that. And then when we went around with that $2 million film, they were like, look, I hate to tell you this, but this is a year later, and this landscape is drastically changing. And it has been ever since, drastically changing every year. So you don't really know what you're going to what minefield you're walking into every year.
Yeah.
You can't really prepare like that. You just need to write what you're excited about and go out and figure out how to make it.
Yeah.
With whatever is there. But they said that $2 million film now is a $200,000 film.
Oh, Jesus.
And we went, are you fucking kidding? They're like, no, can you do this for $200,000? We said, absolutely not. They said, well, then you got to go write something else. So yeah, we went back to the drawing board.
and look, this is where
we said, fuck this.
it's 5 or 6 years later. The good thing is, look, we were frustrated. We hadn't been able to make a movie over these 5 or 6 years, but we had been honing our writing crafts.
Yeah.
We had just been writing relentlessly. And so Ian and I got together and we said, look, let's write something that they can't stop us from making. That's of bigger budget. We can go out and we can try to get
we can shoot it for $2 or we can shoot it for $2 million.
Yeah. So we wrote it for our hometown. It was called Lost on Purpose. It was a love letter to our hometown. It was a dairy epic.
There's a big genre for the dairy epics.
That market's just getting bigger and bigger, isn't it?
But I will say the one thing we did is we kept that attitude of fuck it. I'm going to write what I want to see, what I feel like writing, and what we want to shoot. I don't like. We'd go places there like, you wrote a dairy film? We're like, oh yeah, it's about dairy films, about this, young, this middle-aged,
like,
plucky dairy owner.
Yeah, we're like, it's like HUD meets American Graffiti.
All right, I'm in.
Yeah, no, we were pumped.
We were pumped about it. So we were like, fuck it, we're going to make it.
And they're like, get it budgeted. So we're like, okay. So they introduced us to this indie line producer.
This guy's indie.
They're like, he's going to help.
He's
He's going to crunch these numbers for you guys and make it a real world working number. And this guy comes back with a budget of $8 million.
Oh my God.
It's got like street races and a working dairy farm and
Street
all this.
fights,
Yeah, like,
Oh, so he
fights.
rewrote the script for you.
Exactly.
Oh,
but he
gosh.
just didn't hit a number that we could achieve. And so
Well, we had all that in the script. He's just like, there's no way to do it for less than $8 million,
And so Ian had been working as a swimming instructor in LA for young kids, teaching them to swim, and he had squirreled away like $50,000.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, we're gonna take. And I didn't manage to save a nickel.
Well, he's still working at ArcLight, which is hard to make a nickel when you're making $7
$7 an hour. But we'd taken that $50,000 and we said, we're gonna go take this $50,000. We're gonna go back to our Central Valley hometown, and we're gonna make this movie.
We were saving everything we had. It wasn't like I had $450,000 sitting around.
Yeah, that was
like,
over 5 years.
Yeah.
For 5 years, I saved every penny with the absolute point of making a film with it.
Yeah.
And we lived fucking destitute.
We had like blow up furniture and fold out tables.
We had 2 blow up couches, and I slept in a sleeping bag in a vacant room with nothing else in it. But we had a 1-room apartment that we shared. He slept in the living room on
my bed from childhood.
the bed he had from childhood that our mom let us borrow. And then I slept in a sleeping bag for 5 years in the room. And there was nothing else in that room but my clothes piled in a bag that was like 10 feet away from me. And so that's how we lived.
And we had a computer set up in the living room.
And we fucking saved everything. We saved every penny. We put it into this movie. And we're just like, fuck it. Like, we're going hard. Like, we're making this fucking movie. And so we said, we're making it for $50,000, but we would really like to make it for $200,000 because that's what we thought with our indie roots, with making a $5,000 movie and a $1,500 movie previously. I think we could do it for $200,000. You know, I think
we could deliver the quality that we wanted.
I think we could do it. And so we went, and that was like, okay, rental camera package, blah, blah, blah. We'd also run into a buddy of ours at the time who, Johnny Durango, our DP.
And he shot 4 or 5 pictures with us.
So he shot the last 5 movies with us. Wow. And it's because of this moment. Like, Esh was making safety videos with him. Esh was his grip. Esh would go get him coffee and wave gels in front of smoke machines trying to create fake fires off screen so that it would flash red on the wall and be like, oh, there's a fire, and then people would run out placating, safety videos.
And we would be showing Johnny all of our shorts and features as we had gone along these last few years. And I remember at one point we got to Johnny and we showed him Night of the Dog. And he said, you know what? The only thing wrong with this one is, and we said, what? He said, I didn't shoot it. And we're like, all right, let's rock and roll, baby.
So then we went and shot a short with him. And it went swimmingly. And it was the best looking thing we'd ever shot, times 25. He just brought the camera that he had, and we all shot it for free, and we spent about $1,200 on the short, which was a lot of money for us. We were like, $1,200? Are you kidding? We could do a feature for this. We were that skimpy with our money. He's like, just trust me, we're gonna need this lens, or whatever. It was literally that was what we rented.
There's always that lens.
Fucking bullshit, and so that and his Airy kit that he came out. We lit this thing, and it looked fucking phenomenal. It looked like a real fucking movie with real depth of field and real lighting, and we're like, holy shit!
So we pitched Johnny Lost on Purpose, and he's in. He's hyped. He wants to do it, and he's
from a small town in Illinois.
And then we show him the budget of $50,000. He goes, okay, we got to do better. So he went out personally, and we took him on as a producer, and he personally raised another $90,000.
Holy shit!
Yeah. And then we raised 100, and our approach, here's a good thing for filmmakers, right? We saved every penny we had. We had $50,000 to start with. And when we went out to our first investors, we said, hey, we're making this movie. The budget's $200,000. We've already got $50,000 in investments from people. We've already got
Smart.
that. So, we're a quarter of the way there, and a lot of people believe in us. All these people back here, they gave us the 50. And they're like, wow, this actually sounds pretty good. And we're like, yeah, it's going to be great. And we wouldn't take anybody's money until we had the film greenlit, but we would get an assurance from them saying, well, yeah, this actually sounds pretty good. I'll put $5,000 in. And that's what we did. We did it in $5,000 lots.
I remember Steven Rogers, who recently wrote I, Tonya.
Oh,
came in real early and helped us out, and he said, "Well, I'll give you, I don't remember what, $5,000 or $10,000."
Came on as an associate producer, but even he was repped at ICM at the time, and he came on board, and he was like, "Well, I'm at ICM. I just wrote this script, and it wasn't I, Tonya, it was a Christmas script he just written, and he had kind of caught a flame over there again, because as you know, these people's careers ebb and flow, and it's not any fault of the person's career. It's literally did something hit? Okay, it's surging. And did your last 3 movies make $1 bazillion? Okay, maybe they didn't. They made $500 million. A little ebb, So it's he was at a point where he was starting to pop up again. He's like, I've got a little excitement going for me at the agency. Let me. Is
there anybody over there that you guys want to use for this movie?
Yeah, let me shill for you. Who's over there in ICM that you like? And we were like, actually, Jane Kaczmarek is somebody we're super excited about for this role. Big fans of Malcolm in the Middle, a bunch of the dramatic work like Pleasantville and some other stuff that she'd done. And we were just like she's phenomenal. We'd love to work with her. And he went and put the script on the Hildy Gottlieb, who's her agent, put it on her desk and said, hey, I'm helping produce this thing and I'm financing this thing. I'd love to have you come in, or I'd love to have Jane come in and do a part. The guys are really excited about her. And so that's how it all started, man. It was we were raising money and trying to get talent. And by the time we actually sat down with Jane, we had all our money, and it was hey, is this a real movie? And we're like, yes, it is. The other key piece of casting that came on was we shared a manager with James Lafferty of One Tree Hill fame. We shared a manager with James, and he was spending 99.9% of his time in North Carolina shooting this show for the past 10 years. It ran for about a decade. But he would get little weeks to come back to LA, where he's from Hemet, which is about an hour or so away. And he was like, hey, I'm going to be in town. You guys want to, because we had started exchanging scripts via our manager, because she was like, he's a really good writer. I want you guys to read each other's work. So she was like, well, he's in town for a week. You guys want to sit down with him? We're like, yeah. So we all hurriedly, he and us, all read 2 or 3 scripts by each other, and then sat down over sushi, and we're just like, hey man, like, we loved your writing. He liked our writing, and we started just building a relationship upon the writing side of it. And after we got done with the meeting, we were just like, man, he would be, just talking to him, we're like, he'd be so perfect as one of these characters in that dairy epic we're writing.
and he just fit the vibe, right? He's a young guy.
He's from a small town again, Hemet.
Yeah.
So we were like, dude, would you read this script? And he was like, yeah, bring it over. And he read it.
And he wanted to be in it. And he was like, yeah, I love this character. I'd love to play this.
And we literally gave him a choice. We said, look, you're from a small town. We think you get the vibe of this. Like, just pick a character. If there's a character in here that gets you excited, and there's 5 of them. There's like 5 main dudes.
And we said that, but he actually picked the character that we wanted somebody else for. So we're like, James, this is the one we want you to play.
Well, it was actually, the funny thing is, there were 5 guys in like the main roles, and they all worked on this dairy farm. And the 5th fiddle, the smallest part, is the one he picked because his dad owned a this or that, which that guy had a dad that owned this or that kind of vibe. And we were like, okay, you have that one 200%. Like, if you want it, of course. What do you think of this other guy who was like the fucking lead? What do you think of this fucking guy? And he's like, let me reread it. So he went back and reread it, and then just having a conversation with him, he's like, look, honestly, that is probably the other guy I most had in common. He's like, and then we just talked about a bunch of stuff that was getting us excited about it, him excited about it. And he's like, okay, yes, I'll play that.
Man, we went and shot this thing, and we edited it in our basement. And of course, another evolution. The production value is much higher. We've got a real DP. We've got a full crew. We've got name actors.
We had like 25 to 30 people on the crew, and it was like a real fucking movie, and it looked amazing. Everyone we'd go to and be like, we did a ton of little screenings of 5 to 10 people as we were recording our edit. And people would be like, how much fucking money did you guys have? Because there's like full-on functioning dairy farm. We got James driving tractors and fucking compost. Like, they got fucking doing everything. And they're like, what the fuck? But we just went to this dairy farm. And we said, hey, we don't have any money. If we give you like 0.5% of the film, will you allow us to just come on here and shoot? And they're all, what's the film about? And we told them about it because there aren't a lot of positive dairy films out there. We're like, hey, this is a very positive film about how we grew up. And they're like, fuck yes. Like, we're all in.
So
and
cool.
They let us just have the run of the place. And the one thing we told them was we said, look, we're never going to be able to apologize enough for how
much of a pain in the ass
this film crew is going to be. But we really appreciate it. And he's like, it's fine. And then halfway through the shooting, as like,
we're doing some pretty rowdy things.
He's like, you warned me. And the only thing we told them is we were just like, if anybody breaks anything or anything gets fucked up, like, we're going to pay for it. Don't worry. Like, I will fucking sell my car to fucking fix this shit.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes.
And what's amazing is it was an amazing family. They've since gotten out of the dairy business, but they really have a lot of reverence for the film because it's a time capsule for their dairy farm.
Yeah, it's when their family dairy farm was at the very end, and it's amazing.
Oh, wow.
They hold on to it. It's like, look, this is what we were. This is what our family came from.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, we ended up getting into festivals and having some success that way.
I think we won like 20 B-plus film festivals. But again, we never got into a Sundance. Sundance is not looking for that pro-dairy epic.
It's shocking.
Shocking. It was shocking to us, and then a complete like, why the fuck did we think that was even going to work? Because you got to submit to Sundance. You got to try to get in there.
But it had a fairly warm reception, and someone came to us. It was a bunch of weird things happened there. So this guy,
we had this fucking incredible mantra. I got to cut in for a second. Sorry. We had this incredible mantra where we said, no fucking festival is too small for us. Like, we're going in everywhere. I don't care where this thing's playing. 3 people in front of whatever dairy farm on a fucking pull down screen. We're going to be there.
Yeah.
And we're going to be like, we made this film for you. Like, we're pumped. So there was this we went to like 20 some odd festivals, some big, some small, some we couldn't go to, some were in Canada. We didn't have enough money to fly there. We couldn't go, but we Skyped in or whatever. Like, we tried to do everything we could on our personal shoestring budget because everything was in this film and we were working again, just trying to survive.
Well, and what you don't realize is going to film festivals is expensive.
Really expensive.
Especially when you're paying for it, right? You're taking off work, you're paying for flights, gas, food, hotel. Like, it adds up quick.
So we started writing. So we had run into, this sounds crazy, but we had run into Sharon Waxman through a relation through one of and she runs the Wrap. and she's also a wonderful, she's written a couple wonderful books, and on the industry. And we'd run into her, and she said, "Well, hey, I love your story. Like, you guys want to come in and write some
guest blogs?
Some guest blogs? Like, I'm doing all these guest blogs. Why don't you guys come in and tell me about your indie experience, the films you're making, and how it's distribution, all that shit." We're like, "Yeah, that'd be so much fun." So we started doing this blog. And I think we only did 3 entries before we actually got
sidetracked.
We got another film, so we had to stop. But we were writing these guest blogs on there about distribution and how we thought distribution should be done.
And some of the things that we thought we could, would help evolve the festival experience and make it better, not only for filmmakers, but the audience,
is to have, like, the easy quick pitch was have revenue share for the filmmakers. And I'm not talking about like, I'm taking 50% of the box office. It's like, okay, what is about the cost of you going to this film festival? What can the festival rev share? Because we were selling out, and this goes back to Night of the Dog, when we started first kind of self-marketing these films. We were selling out theaters in Santa Barbara. We sold out a 1,200 seat theater with $10 tickets.
Wow!
And we were like 1,200 seats for Night of the Dog, a $5,000 movie. One festival. There were other screenings, but that was one screening. We sold out 1,200 seats, and we were just like, if they shared with us at all in this one festival, we'd probably have enough to pay back our entire budget.
Yeah, and make another movie, or we were just looking at how to sustain and make more stuff.
And that's all we were after. It's like, how do you pay back your investors and get to that next movie? Especially when we felt we were pushing the fucking limits of being responsible with your cash, because we were turning in every dollar on that screen as much as we could.
I remember James would fly out. He was such a champion of the film. He would fly out, and obviously his fans from One Tree Hill adored him and would show up in droves for the movie.
For Lost on Purpose, we would go places like fucking anywhere. So we went to 20 some odd festivals. He showed up to like a dozen of them.
Whoa.
And again, it was just,
the turnout was amazing.
Sold out screenings, people standing outside trying to get in, not only to see the movie, but to get a look at him and shake his hand and give him encouragement and be like, yes, we're your fans, we're behind you, we're gonna fucking support you, we're excited.
So we came up with these blogs, and someone starts a film festival based on these blogs.
He goes, I read your blogs, and I started a film festival. And he dumped like hundreds of thousands of dollars into a worldwide rev share website that you could put up your films on there and screen them across the world and be able to like give some compensation back to the filmmaker. A certain percentage went back to the filmmaker. So awesome. It was based in LA. The only problem with it is that he ran out of money because he's funding it all himself.
And he never had a real physical platform for it.
Yeah, so he ran out of money. The festival ran for like 2 years, but the silver lining on it is that he called us like a few years after that, and he was like, the most amazing thing just happened. He's like, because we stayed friends with him. And he was like, I sold the rights. He's like, I own the template for that online screening service. He's like, but he sold the
mechanism, the hardware, the software.
Every festival you go to now where it's like, hey, we have an online thing, that's his system built into that now.
Oh, wow.
So he rents that out to festivals now across the world. And he was able to make his money back on
I
the
bet he did
thing.
this year when all the festivals went virtual.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was.
I'm sure he's part of that. Very integrated part of that. But a friend of his
saw Lost on Purpose, was grousing to him like, "Hey, I'm really frustrated because I have this book rights, and I've been at Brett Ratner's company, which was a company at the time, and I've been at Tyler Perry's company, and I've been at this company and that company. She'd literally been to like 5 companies, and they were all."
Developing the movie into this $20 million, big studio.
They're like, this is a $20 million studio rom-com. Let's go for it. So she spent like 5 years trying to get that movie turned into a $20 million rom-com, and she was in development hell and frustrated, and she had $500,000 from investors.
And we understood instantly what she had been through because Ian and I had experienced that for the last previous years, 5 years before we made Lost on Purpose.
Right.
The one that had just fallen apart before we decided to make Lost on Purpose. So she was like, I'm in this development hell. I can't get this thing going. I feel like I'm just going to be spinning my wheels my whole life. And she's like, I have $500,000. Can you guys read this? How much did you? She like watches the movie because the guy gives it to her. And he says, if you have $500,000, like these guys made this thing for $200,000, he gives it to her and she watches it. And it's like, put me in contest with these guys right now. And so she's like, I have $500,000. I have this book. Will you guys read it and tell me what you think? And so we read it and we're like, okay, we love this. And yeah, we could do it for $500,000. Totally.
But we said, hey, we want to let's work with, she co-wrote it on it. It's like, let's take this script back to something more distilled down to the book that we can actually achieve for the money that you have.
But she agreed, because it was just like, you can't shoot a $20 million rom-com for $500,000. It's just going to look like you're trying to do that and failing. So yeah, we were just like, okay, let's rethink this. And Esh and I had been working, bussing tables and fucking serving and working in movie theaters. We knew this world well, because it was it's called Waffle Street. And it was about a guy who was running this $30 billion hedge fund. Yeah. He gets caught up in the housing crisis, blamed for all the shit that he becomes a fall guy for his real estate agency. And they're like, his investment company that was all based on that real estate debacle. Mm-hmm. And he becomes the fall guy for that, and he gets so discouraged and disheartened and depressed about what had happened and what was going on with the state of the economy, that he decides to go work at a waffle restaurant and try to redeem himself and figure out what the fuck he's going to do with his life. And that's the only thing you think to do. Fuck it, I'm just going to go work in the service industry and try to get my shit together. And he meets this surly line cook who ends up being played by Danny Glover, and this guy. It's kind of we kept pitching it as like a Pinocchio story, because it was like he got broken down, and then it was like turning him back into a real boy. He was like, when he got back in touch with society and reality and people, and this surly line cook was just kind of dealing him real life lessons, and being funny and really pointed with them and very sharp at certain times. But it was all things that were going to help build him into a better human being, and it did. And that was kind of what happened by the end of don't want to ruin the end of the movie for you, but he builds himself into a better man, a real boy by the end of the movie. And it was a great tale. So we were just like, oh, this could be a lot of fun, man. Yeah.
And so we honestly told Autumn, we said, look, we'll do it, but you have to promise us that we're going to make this.
Yep.
And we'll even come on and rewrite it.
And so she said yes. And so Esh and I went on. We spent 3 months rewriting the script. And then within 6 months of us sure saying yes, we were casting and down in Utah, in pre-production in Utah. It was fucking incredible. Like, we'd never experienced anything like that. And that was the first movie we were making where we didn't have to put our life savings or even the $1,500 that we had into it, because every time we'd made a movie up to that point, we put everything we had into it. Mm-hmm. We put $1,500 into Squirrel Trap. That's all we had. Our budget would have been higher. You know. So
this is the only one where we were actually, and it wasn't a great deal of payment, but we got actually paid to make a movie, and it wasn't our own money being spent.
And we were of the mindset, as they were, the people making the film with us, the producers, and we were just of the mindset of, let's just put everything on screen. This is a calling card for all of us. Like, we want to put it all on the table here and just put everything on the screen. And they're like, we totally agree. Like, let's do it. So everything we had, and that goes across the board, went up on that screen. And everybody was very much not making any money and just trying to make a good movie. And that thing hit at an incredible time because Netflix was just kind of gaining momentum, right?
Mm-hmm. It was chugging along.
It was just kind of picking up. And they were picking up movies and putting them on the front with like 5 movies. And they were this is the very beginning
days.
Because
they had a dearth of material.
Yeah, they didn't have any.
But they had tons of subscribers.
And they were picking up movies and putting like 5 movies on the front of the website and saying, best, whatever the top 5 watched movies were, they were putting up there and saying best on Netflix.
Yep.
And we were top 5 for fucking months.
Whoa.
Months and months. It must have been 3 or 4 months, and we were top 5. And it was funny because we'd go places and they'd be like, we made Waffle Street or whatever. I saw that on Netflix. And it was like,
I'd be up at like a microbrewery in Portland, and they're like, "What do you do?" "Oh, I make movies. Like anything I see, I don't know. I mean, we made this movie called Waffle Street.
It's on Netflix.
Waffle Street. We went in there one time, and this is when Netflix still like had the ratings thing in there, and like it had been rated like 250,000 times or something.
Rated 250,000 times, which they usually say it's kind of like a 10 to 1 or maybe even a 15 to 1 of who watches the movie and rates it.
Yeah.
And so we were just like, holy shit, that's like millions of people watch this fucking thing.
It's amazing.
It was pretty amazing to think about.
It was incredible.
Well, but what was the conundrum there was we had made Waffle Street and we showed it to our representation, and they did not understand how Waffle Street was going to get us
to FATMAN, basically.
The crime thrillers that we had been writing, like Small Town Crime and FATMAN.
Because our representation had picked us up off of FATMAN and Small Town Crime and another film, which we will be making at some point, so I don't want to name it, but it's the middle one. It's the middle one that we jumped over and made, but there's a middle one that's filled with fire and wonderfulness that we're going to make at some point.
But they didn't quite get it, and so they said, "Hey, look, guys, we don't understand how this trajectory makes sense. Let's agree to amicably part ways."
And so we were like, "Oh yeah, well that's." We were a little upset because we were like, they were like, "Why are you making this?" And we're like, "Well, we're making this because one, like we see a way to make a cool story out of it, and I think we could totally put our vibe on it. It's going to be great. We're pumped. Two, we're going to get to make a movie. Like, we've been." You haven't gotten us anywhere to help us make a movie, and then we've once landed in our lap. We're fucking taking it, and we're excited about it.
And it's interesting too because I remember our dad watching Lost on Purpose, and he said, let's just say Lost on Purpose was written very realistically for the time, and the age. He goes, I like the movie, but is there any other word that you guys can use other than fuck?
Such a dad thing to say.
Yeah. Oh my God. Perfect. Right. And so we had just.
So I want to be able to show my friends this movie.
and so when Waffle Street came to us, Ian and I were like, this would be. We got really excited about the opportunity to make what we call the clean routine movie
because the producers were very much like, you realize this is like a PG movie. We're all we totally get it, and we were actually really excited of the challenge of making something that. Okay, are these jokes going to be able to land if we can't have the word fuck in them? Well, yeah, absolutely. You just got to be a little smarter.
It's like clean comedians,
Exactly.
It's a real talent that goes with them.
Exactly.
So what's interesting was we ended up breaking up with our representation, and
so we had no representation when we made Waffle Street. And then we had
we had it during Waffle Street.
We had it during, but then after they said, we're going to part ways. So we parted ways, and then we started. Those same producers, two of them, came to us and said,
we're really excited how this all went with Waffle Street.
This went really well. We're really excited. We actually have some other financiers. Like, what else do you guys have? Do you have any material that we could say, well, look, we've got these crime thrillers, which are nothing like Waffle Street, but yes, we have these crime thrillers we're incredibly passionate about. They said, show us one. So we showed them Small Town Crime. They read it, and they were like, okay, I think we can get the money for this. We're like, are you serious? So yeah, but you got to be able to get. What
kind of talent can you get? Can
you get some talent on this? We got to get some talent on this. Like the financiers are going to. The first question they're going to ask is, yes, you can have the money, but who can you get on this? And so we went, okay.
But we were incredibly blessed because of Steven Rogers and a circle of friends that he keeps and ingratiated us into.
This is way back in 2002.
Yeah, this is when we first came to town in 2002. But we had been keeping these relationships the whole time. He had introduced us to Octavia Spencer, Tate Taylor, who directed The Help and many other movies since, and Allison Janney, all these people.
Melissa McCarthy. These were all friends of his that he either went to acting school with or had spun into his circle through other friends of friends, and they all just kind of hang out and shoot the shit. And at the time, it's 2002. Melissa McCarthy was coming off Gilmore Girls, which is super exciting, and she's great in that. But she wasn't Melissa McCarthy like she's Melissa McCarthy now. Yeah. And Allison Janney was just coming off, or she was in the middle of, I think, or just coming off of West Wing, which she's fucking great in. She was a couple of years out on like American Beauty, which she's amazing in as well. But she wasn't Allison Janney like she's Allison Janney now. And Octavia Spencer had like 2 lines in Spider-Man and 1 line in Being John Malkovich, and she was not
undeniably talented.
Undeniably talented, but was not Octavia Spencer like Octavia Spencer is now.
Yep.
And Brunson and Tate had shot. Brunson had produced a couple of like really small movies.
He's a producer on The Help.
He produced The Help.
Yeah.
And he and Tate teamed up and made this short film called Chicken Party, which Esh and I just came on and to shoot like flashback sequences on. And so half of it was shot in film and half of it was shot on our DVX 100. This was kind of going on at the same time in parallel lines as we were making our movies. They were making their movies, and we would come over and help them when they needed this or they needed that, or, hey, y'all, can we borrow your camera? Okay, you can, but we're going to be the ones shooting it. We wanted the experience. We're like, hey, can we DP it? So we'd come out and do the cameraman for them. And it was fucking great. We got to work with Octavia. We got to work with Allison. We got to know and work with Melissa. And like,
so when it came time to get Small Town Crime and that actor attached, Octavia had hired us to adapt a book that she had optioned into a TV show. And so we came over there and we had just cut the trailer for Waffle Street. And we showed her and she's like, oh shit, you guys got Danny Glover? I love Danny Glover. And she was hyped on it. And she was like, what else are you guys doing? What else are you working on? I said, well, we had just finished this lookbook for Small Town Crime, and we happen to have it on us.
And the other thing about Octavia is that she loves crime thrillers, and we knew this because she was watching now it was like Making of a Murder and a couple other things, but before that it was other Staircase, a couple other shows. But she'd be like, I could see it in his eyes. He did it, y'all. He did it. She would get like really pumped up, and she's written her own kids detective series called
I didn't know that.
She's super into
into
mysteries and crime thrillers, and she fucking loves it. And so
we knew her kryptonite going in.
So we showed her this lookbook, and she's like, boys, this looks awesome. Give me that script.
So she called us back 24 hours later, and she's like, I love it. I'm in. I'm EPing it. Is there a cop or something I could play in this?
Whoa.
And we were like, okay. We literally took a night. We said, of course, let us, yes. And we were just like, what role can we get her in this? And we'd had such fun and this is where the idea came from, right? We had such fun with Danny and James and that dynamic on Waffle Street where, it's an interracial dynamic. You've got this white guy getting his ass kicked by Danny Glover, this old surly black guy, and he's just fucking laying it down. And we fucking love that dynamic. And they were having fun with it, and the movie has fun with it. And we were like, okay, well, what can we do in this one? Oh shit, what if Octavia Spencer plays
John's adopted.
John Hawkes'
adopted.
We didn't have John Hawkes at the time, but we were like, what if a white guy is adopted into a black family and then fucks it up?
He's a total
fucks
screw
it all up. It's like the reverse upside down Blindside or some shit.
Right.
That's really funny. And there's no comment on it. There's no I remember when we were doing screenings of it, the initial screenings, we had a guy, one of our more retentive friends was
very detail-oriented.
I'm not quite sure back in 1974 when John would be a child if he could be adopted into a black family at the time. And we're like, I don't give a fuck, man. This is funny. This is awesome.
What we want to see. It's what we want to live in.
This is the fucking kind of world I want to live in. I don't care what the percentage is. This is a fun idea.
Whatever it was, this was that percent.
That's that family. So we pitched it to Octavia, and she's like, oh, man, y'all, that sounds like a lot of fun. She's like, I think that's a really cool idea.
So she's like, bring your list. And so we brought our list of actors, and we all landed on John Hawkes, right? So she goes, okay, I'm going to go out to him. And she writes John this letter. Has to fax it to him because John is not, technologically forward.
Old school.
He's very much
there was all these amazing stories of John where they were like, he lives in an RV down by the ocean. We're all, what the fuck? And he doesn't have any cell service, doesn't have a cell phone, doesn't have anything. He lives off the grid. And we're like, holy fuck.
I do know the letter was faxed to him, though.
Yeah, so the letter was faxed to John.
And it said, hey, John, I love you for this movie. The guy, I know these guys. I back them 100%. I think you're going to be great in this. We've been in a couple movies, but we've never had a scene together. Let's remedy that. All I'm going to say is we play brother and sister.
And so later on, John Hawkes was like, I read this letter from Octavia, and I'm just like, are you what fucking movie is this where we're playing brother and sister? This sounds like The Jerk, or what the fuck is this? And she had done it,
so of course we're going to read it.
Yeah, so he's like, I got to at least read it. So he said he reads it, and he was like, and I'm like, okay, fuck yes, I'm super excited about this, this detective role, this is gonna be a lot of fun. And come to find out, he's a big fan of sort of this detective thriller genre, and he was excited to do a role like this. So I
remember we sat down with John, and he comes into the 101 cafe, and we sit across from him, and he's like, okay, guys, I've only read it 3 times.
And we're this is 24 hours from when he had read it.
Holy shit.
Down on us. He's like, I've only read it 3 times. We're like, I think we got the right guy for this.
Boom.
And then from Octavia and John, Noah was like, okay, who do you want next to play her brother? Right?
Yeah, Octavia's like,
or her husband.
My brother? Who wants my husband? Who wants my husband? And we're like, well, we actually wrote it with Anthony Anderson in mind, because he
love him.
We love him, and he has this embodiment of likability and lovability, and he has a limited amount of screen time for the pivotal role he plays at the end. So we were just like, we have to cast somebody that is so lovable innately that you want to save him. You feel bad that he's in peril.
Yeah.
So she's like, oh man, Anthony. She's like, he's just got Blackish going, y'all. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get him. She's like, but you know what? Anthony and I get our nails done at the same salon. I'm gonna see if I I'm doing what I can do, y'all. So we're like, holy shit, awesome.
And she literally called us like a week later. She's like, Anthony's in.
Whoa.
Which day, boys?
Yeah, so she's like, it wasn't at the nail parlor, but I ran into him. She's like, I ran into him at a parlor or at a party. She's like, I ran him to a party and I pitched him and we had a good old time. And then he read the script and she's like, and he's in, he loved it.
And with that trio, then we were able to roll out. We got Katie Lotz, Robert Forrester,
Michael Vartan, Clifton Collins Jr.
Just so many wonderfully talented actors.
Yeah, we filled it out with just these amazing actors, people we had been dying to work with. Came in and filled in these other roles, and it was just fucking incredible.
That's amazing.
It was like every day was like, there was like Jeremy Ratchford, and we got to work with James Lafferty again in that movie. Like just all of our Dale Dickey again.
Yeah.
Just all of our favorite fucking actors we got to
bring for one big party.
Yeah, it was so much fun.
God.
And we finished that. We went and we debuted at South by Southwest.
So that one we got into South by Southwest with.
Yeah.
And we screened at the Paramount. It was a 1,200 seat, again, another 1,200 seat theater, but 1,200 seats in the Paramount in Austin.
And I think it's interesting to frame this. We had sat down with the festival coordinator beforehand, and she said, hey, look, guys, like, this isn't a festival that makes big sales. You're here to make connections.
Let's get your expectations. This isn't Sundance, okay? She's like, we're a wonderful festival, and we're amazing. She's like, but you don't come here and make a big multi-million-dollar sale. She's like, you come here, you network. This is about
filmmaker experience.
Art. This is about making the movie. It's about the filmmaker experience, about collaborating with people, meeting people. And we're like, fuck, all right, well, we got to fucking, we got to be the one that does.
And Ian and I like, please tell us that something isn't possible. Please tell us that something that isn't going to happen, because that's when we go, okay.
I remember we literally walked up to her.
And we're like, Janet, we're going to be that.
Our publicist was good friends with Janet, and we walked up to her at the end and we said, Janet, we're going to be that movie. And she just laughed and she's like, all right, prove me wrong. So the most amazing thing was that at the end of that first screening, we had 1,200 seat auditorium, and we had everybody you could imagine the Austin film scene there, because I think just the cast and the pitch of the film was like, okay, this could be fun. And we had this thing fucking packed. And at the end of the film, there's the shootout. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the film, this fucking 1,200 seat auditorium rose to its feet and gave a standing ovation.
Whoa. It's one of those moments, man.
It was incredible. And I mean,
and Ian and I are so nervous. We're sitting there in the wings. We can't sit down.
We're literally like this watching the movie, tucked in a corner. And then when that moment happens, because you hear chuckles and laughs, but you're just not quite sure if everything's landing. And then there's plenty of times a movie screens of yours, and they're like, yeah, it was really great. The review comes out, and they're like, complete piece of shit. And you're like, so you don't know. You don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. So we're sitting there literally just like, oh, fuck, is this happening? And then like they give that standing ovation, and we're really like, oh, my God. It was like we had won an Oscar or something, For us, it was like everything, like this fucking moment of like just emotional.
Yeah, it was tough because you put – these movies are hard, man. They're over a year of your life.
And you just put every fucking minute of your life into them. You have families, you have shit to do, and you spend 16 hours of your 24-hour day is sitting either writing or shooting it, or then you're back editing it, or then you're trying to promote it, and you're trying to figure out this and that, and you're fucking doing deliverables. And it's a lot for a year, man. It's everything, and you have everything riding on it, and your heart and your soul and your mind is in this fucking movie. And everything is, not only are you emotionally attached to it because it's a child of yours, but like it's your fucking career.
Your well-being
is your dreams.
Really tied to it.
It's everything you ever wanted sitting in, at that point, a hard drive, sitting in a hard drive in front of you, and you just want people to fucking like it. Or not even, it's not even that. It's like, I want to be able to communicate with people in a way that they know like what I'm trying to get across here. You know, it's like it's an understanding, I just want to be understood with this fucking movie. Mm-hmm. And so
it was really rewarding to have that happen.
That was the first one it ever happened on that we'd been sitting with 1,200 people that it fucking happened all at the same moment. And hoots and hollers, big standing ovation, like we're nearly crying. And then, we go up on the stage afterwards, and it was amazing because our publicist was like, you got to bring the cast. I don't care what you do. Like, you got such a great cast, and these people are so supportive. Like, let's bring them. So we literally brought like 13 people in the cast, flew them in.
Wow.
Thank you, producers. Flew them in. And we had this fucking train up on stage. And we got another standing ovation.
Because that's truly what it is, right? Like it's these movies are such a collaborative endeavor. Oh, yeah. There's not 2 people sitting there making this all happen.
And
it's an army.
That's just the leading roles in the film. That's not anything of the fucking 50 people that
creative people below. Yeah,
killed themselves to over a few months to fucking give you something you can deliver to people and be passionate and excited about. So we had this huge train up there, and it was just amazing, and everybody got to kind of talk for about a half hour.
And the film ended up selling out of there. We ended up selling it.
Wow.
Sold it for what we made it for.
Yeah.
It was fucking amazing. Like, it was millions of dollars, and fucking they made their money back, and like we got really good reviews, and it was just fucking really fucking cool, man.
That's amazing. I feel like that's what it's all about.
Yeah,
dude.
And so we got representation again. We kind of armed back up, and from there they were like, what other scripts do you guys have? And so we gave them like 3 scripts that we were excited about. And they were like, okay, we like all these. This one, this fucking FATMAN script. They're like, this thing is all you guys. So I think that's what we should do next. They're like, I've never read anything like that. I've never seen anything like that. They're like, do this one next. And no matter what, like, it's going to be your voice. It's going to be a stamp. It's going to be, this is the Nelms Brothers. So we said, all right, we honestly
didn't think that we would be able to make it so soon.
We thought we were 1 or 2 away. We thought we were going to have to do a movie or 2 in between because of
the
how
idea is so rowdy.
It's such a crazy movie.
Well, the idea is rowdy.
Yes.
But, our take was to make it ultra grounded.
Our take was very grounded, but the movie, when you read it, you're like, what the fuck is this? And so we would go into meetings and pitch it and talk about it, and they'd set us up with a bunch of places. But the one thing we had is we had Small Town Crime to point back to and say, it's like this. Mm-hmm. It's like this movie. And they would say, I get it. Okay, there's a lot of heightened characters and fantasy and fucking crazy shit going on, but you're going to play it straight. And we're all like, yes. And they're like, we think that's pretty fucking cool.
And I think that brings us to the main course of the evening.
Yes, right.
Took a long way around.
Yeah. So FATMAN gets greenlit. How does Mel Gibson jump on board?
I mean, we had seen Mel Gibson in we'd seen Hacksaw Ridge.
Yep.
And then Mel Gibson came out to do the Q&A afterwards.
Sorry, I'm just looking for time. We have another meeting.
And
we're fine.
And he's sitting there, and he's got we're fine. Okay. He's got a feral beard, and he's just come off the production, so that he's a little worn down.
Awards fucking run, so he's been flying everywhere with this movie, and he's like this, hunched over,
and he just looks like he's
passionate. But the weight of the world's there; it's right there on his shoulders. And he's like, "Oh yeah, we did this movie, and it was amazing to watch."
And Ian and I turned to each other, and we're like, "Oh, that's the guy. That's Chris right there. That feels."
If Chris Kringle was a real guy, that's how he would feel right now.
Right,
he would feel exactly like that guy does. How the fuck am I going to pull this off? How did I do this? What do I need to do next? I feel like, I got to do something. And like, how do I fix this? Or how do I, he had that like weight of the world on him. And we just saw the script unfolding before us through his eyes, honestly.
Yes. And then it was like, now go get him. Right. So we'd found partners to make the movie. We were submitted to his agent, and it was a waiting game. It was like, okay, is he going to respond? Is he not going to respond?
And we were still having meetings with other production companies and other possibilities. But I get this email that says, hey, I love the script. Let's have a chin wag or whatever. Really funny. Let's have a chin wag. And
we have no idea. There's no sign off.
No sign off. And the fucking, in the email names, like, has nothing to do with anything. So I'm like, okay, well, I like write it back because I've been, getting emails like this for the last month of like, hey, yeah, great. Let's sit down and have a meeting and talk about it. So I'm like, awesome. So glad you dug it. Like, who am I talking to? And he's like, oh, hey, sorry. I forget to sign off. This is Mel. And I'm like, yes, it's Mel. He likes the script. I can't believe it.
And so we made a date to go sit down in a coffee shop. About 45 minutes was the plan. And about 3.5 hours later, we were still there.
Still talking on the way to the car, just
God.
Excited about the movie, excited about movies in general, talking about the character, talking about what we were going to do with it and why we were excited about it. It was fucking great, man. We just really gelled over it. And the penultimate moment was probably when he says, and this is where we knew we just had the right guy, beyond everything we saw in him, is when he said, that scene where I'm on the balcony, I'm looking out over the elves, and he's like, and I've got to break this really bad news to them. He's like, I feel like, man, if this is Santa, like, this is going to be a really devastating thing to have to tell these people that have been with him for so long. Like, this is pretty devastating that this is where we're at. He's like, I feel like I'd be like in a moment about ready to cry. He's like, because this is devastating.
It's that big of a
It's that
weight.
horrible. And
Yeah.
we're like, yeah, exactly. And he's all, and that's what's going to make it so funny. And we're all, exactly, man. Like that's what we're after. You know what I mean? That's exactly those layers right there. That's exactly what we were after. You know, take
That's
something
awesome.
that's batshit crazy, ground the hell out of it, make you, because there's social commentary running throughout it. And honestly, we felt if you played it too hammy, all that's going to be lost.
Yeah.
You can easily, it's disposable. Oh, great, the commentary.
Right.
I mean, that was a bunch of horse shit. So when you ground something and you're made to sit in it and like really ponder the reality,
as a real world, yeah.
If that was really happening, you're instantly like forced to go, well, fuck, how do we fix that? Or how do they fix that? Or what can they do? And then, I mean, just to give an overall arching theme, because we're here, it's like by the end of the film, this guy decides to take action and do it one person at a time in person.
That's a bit of a spoiler.
But I'm just saying, like, it is. But I'm just saying, like, but there's no better time, I think, to connect those pieces, right? It's like what we were trying to do with the film and what we were trying to say with the film. But yeah, that's really the crux of that film. That's the guts of that thing right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact that it was so grounded made it so unique, you know? It was a really, really uniquely toned kind of a thing, because like you said up front, it's not really a comedy. It's not really a Christmas movie. It does have like this underbelly to it. You know, it's all of these things, which I think people want nowadays, because I think that people are just getting bored of the trappings of genre and they're looking for stuff that's a little bit different, that's uncategorizable. So this is just a breath of fresh air on top of just being fun and legitimately dramatic. I mean, like, damn, it was a real blast. A great way to start off the holiday season.
Awesome. No, and that's what we were striving for, right? We were striving to find something that hadn't been done before.
Yeah.
In a tone that was unique. And for us, like, if farce is disposable.
Yeah.
So
totally.
that was never an option for us, never anywhere we wanted to go.
It's like camping up action, right? If you camp up the action and it's all fun and hokey dokey, then it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, you know, school shooting looks pretty fun. Like, fuck it. You know, but if you make the action like fucking devastating, and you take the hokey shit out of it, and it's really fucking like gross, as it would be.
Yep.
And you're like having a visceral reaction, like, Jesus, that was fucking intense. You know, it was entertaining to watch, but it's not anything I want to be in the middle of personally.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's what you really need to have. That's what we were after anyway.
There's a consequence.
There are consequences for your actions, and it could end like this. You know, that's what that commentary is kind of building towards. Is saying, hey, you know, we're circling around all these fucking horrible things, and they very well could lead to a violent, horrible, graphic ending.
Yeah. Yeah, Tarantino's talked about how violence is the only thing, if you do it well on camera, you get penalized for it, you know? So just like with his violent scenes, with the exception of like, you know, Kill Bill and parts of Django, are so painfully realistic. You know, they deal with the consequences of people getting shot. But so
I agree with that.
What's that?
I agree with that. I think that's important.
I'm a huge Walt Goggins fan.
Yeah,
so
he's great.
What was it like working with him? I've followed his career for so long. I keep waiting to see him in more stuff. He seems like such a leading man to me. Every time he pops up in a movie or a TV show, I get excited. I love the guy. So what was that experience like?
Everything you want and more.
And I keep waiting for that breakout, like Nicholson type role for him.
Totally.
Right.
He's absolutely got that. And
we kept
I just
saying that while we were watching him, you know, it's hard to see when you're in the moment. You just see Walton doing his thing, but when you're editing and you're seeing it 25 fucking times, you're like, holy shit! Like this guy has so much latitude. Like he can literally fucking run like this on dancing pirouettes at the same time through different types of characters and make them believable.
But it was kind of a great. I mean, when we sat down with Walton, look, we were talking to many people about the role of Skinny Man, and Walton came out and he instantly stood out for us. I mean, we were sitting in a coffee shop and we're talking about the script and we're getting amped up and geeked out about it. And I remember he stood up and he started instantly, like not full send acting out scenes, but like getting into character and giving us
there's plenty
lines.
of people there. So it's not like we're just alone somewhere. It's almost like Walton just has this, and he does it on set too, this incredible ability to just kind of block everything out and go into this zone where he's laser focused on something and he can channel, whatever you want to call it, hone, fucking dial into something that is so specific and fucking brush everything else away and just full commitment to it and release himself to it. And you get that on set. And I remember when like we would be in between takes and stuff. And like, I mean, he has a very particular way about him, this skinny man in the movie. And like in between takes, we'd be like, hey, Walt, you know, where you're asking about lunch, you're asking about fucking something else, anything, maybe even character related. But no matter what you're asking about, he'd be like, yeah, I think we could do that. Or, you know, he'd be in
character.
In the character.
He's not fully in the character. He's just simmering. He's
right.
warm.
He's keeping it just beneath the surface. So the voice is there, the mannerisms are there.
Yeah.
But he still responds to Walton and he still answers that the human being would be answering. It's all kind of there, you know?
Yeah. It's so good. It's got to be so refreshing working with somebody like that.
He's incredibly collaborative.
And I mean, honestly, like I remember we would drill down with him on scenes, on character, like how can we, you know, bring this out, enhance that. And then on the day, he's giving you such a wide swath of material. Like, oh, let me try this, right? Like stick my freaking napkin in my shirt. And it was like sticking out in front of me and like, you know, cutting the duck head off. Like he's just doing a bunch of really funny stuff.
He gives you what you want and then he starts having, you know. And it's
so cool.
Sometimes those super fun ones are in the movie and sometimes they tip over a little bit and you got to pull it back. But I mean, he knows that. He's like, I'm going to give you 125. And he pull it wherever you want, y'all.
This was going to be nuts. But like, I'm going to go. Like,
I'm going to pull it off. I'm going to try to pull it off. Brian, just go with me there. Just be with me. We're like, all right, we'll do it. Go, baby, go. And he would jump in there and fucking be like, boom. And he's in it, you know?
I feel like that's what you want, you know, an actor who's willing to take in so many different directions, is willing to kind of like give their own direction to the character after they, you know, do exactly what you're, you know, asking for. But that's so cool.
We try not to get too over analytical or flap our gums too much with the actors. Like we want to see.
There's people that ask for it and want it and need it, and that's great.
Yep.
You want to be that person. Like someone like John Hawkes is very like, let's fucking talk about this, and you talk, and he's channeling it all away. He's doing his own thing too, but he loves to like get in there and really dial everything down personally with you. Whereas like Walton, or even Mel or Mary Ann for that extent, and Chance, they'll come in with something prepared and you don't want to fuck that up.
Yeah.
Like these people have been working on this for fucking months or weeks or whatever it is, but they've got something specific that they have planned for this and you want to let them run.
Oh yeah.
Let them be talented.
Right.
Yeah. You absolutely want to see what's being presented, what they're coming to at the table. And if we want to make adjustments after that, like awesome, you know, and they're obviously down to do that. But yeah, it was just really a blast to work with them.
Yeah,
so
it was
cool.
fun.
So, I mean, considering the entire history that you guys have had with filmmaking, it sounds like there were a lot of kind of marathon moments and in certain cases, a lot of difficulties that you guys faced. Throughout the course of your entire filmmaking career, was there any dark night of the soul where you potentially considered, well, was there ever a time when you thought about, God forbid, giving up? And if so, what pushed you through that? What pushed you over that hump?
I can tell you this. We came out to LA and I
didn't know anybody.
Didn't know anything. And we just sat down in an apartment and started trying to figure it out. And from the perspective of a guy working in a movie theater and a guy working at Tony Roma's, like that's where it started. We didn't know a fucking thing about even making movies, where to go to make them, what to do, who to talk to about it. And we just started from there. And there were moments where it was never a moment of, are we ever going to quit? It was always a moment of, when the fuck is this going to happen? Like, what the fuck? Like, why is this taking so freaking long? And there were so many moments that we would get close and have it fall, and get close and have it fall, and have it close and have it fall in so many different ways. Almost sold a script, almost got a great director attached to a script, but then it just couldn't get going for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Got great actors on a script that we were on to direct that we'd written. And for some reason, it just wouldn't get going, whether that's a financial crisis or we couldn't find the right financing partner.
But I don't think quitting has never been an option for us, and we've never considered it. It was always,
what are our options?
And I also think Ian and I are blessed in that there's two of us. Mm-hmm. And so when one of us is feeling mopey, feeling down, starting to feel the burn, the other one's there to pick that person up.
Yeah.
Carry the baton and say, hey, look, like, you know, give them the rah-rah speech.
And I think a lot of that has to do, honestly, because we talk about it all the time. Like our with our parents, honestly, like our parents were grinders. You know what I mean? And then like I just coming from a sports background, I wrestled all the way through college. And in that sport, you have to fucking grind. It's all about how hard you work, and you see the payoff out of the hard work. And it's years and years and years of you just getting mopped up before you start to see, oh, if I just kind of do it a little bit like this, like I'll have 50% more results. But it took years and years for you to get that little tiny nuance
of insight
that starts to pay off for you. And that's with everything. You got to make a commitment. You got to go out there and just start swinging and fighting like hell and try to be as brave as you can, because I did have him and he had me to lean on, and that's not always the case. And that definitely probably makes it harder, but you need to go get a group of friends like we did, and we do. We have 2 or 3 groups of friends of filmmakers. That the people we made Night of the Dog with are different people from who we're friends with Octavia and Steven. Like those are 2 different groups of friends, but very near and near to us, but 2 very different types of friends and 2 very different groups. But
it's like, I think just,
you surround yourself with people who are excited and as passionate and as driven as you are. And probably the most frightening thing that'll happen is they'll drop away. Most of them will drop away.
Right.
And then you're left at the end of about 4 or 5 years going, holy fuck, we're the only ones still out here, or it's us and him, and we're the only ones still out here. Everyone's still trying, but they like moved to Portland or Maine or Boston, and they got the fuck out of town because they had kids and they couldn't afford to live here, or they got a job at an ad agency because they had to pay the bills. And they're still trying, they're still working on it, but there's a difference between being 1,000% in and how much time it takes to opposed to having 3 toes in and your other seven fucking toes are in the ad agency trying to fucking make a living. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's always a fight to figure out, how do I keep as many toes or fingers or whatever you want to say? How do I keep as much of that time focused towards film? How do I do that? Because it's all time, right? It's like, where do I balance and measure my time? It's like, if you have to work a job, that's going to cut into it, but how do I get it to not cut into it that much?
Yeah.
So you have to be kind of a bit of a master of fucking time management. You have to be like, I need to be spending more time here writing, directing, editing, socializing to a certain extent.
Absolutely.
Than I need to spend during on my day job that pays the bills.
Yeah, and I think it's also a blessing that we had people that were successful that reached back and helped us.
That helped a ton.
And then
at crucial points.
And so
Steven Rogers, a small town crime, came and gave us a little bit of financing, helped us get some key talent from a big agency. Octavia Spencer, again, reached back, said, hey, I'm going to fucking shepherd this thing for you.
Wow.
And those are decades of fucking relationships. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we would have gotten there first, we would have reached back and pulled her up. You know what I mean?
And something we're doing right now is like, we're trying to help facilitate some of our friends and fellow collaborators and make them.
So we've got half a dozen fingers back trying to pull them up in certain extents,
It's amazing. Just karma. It's karma. It's filmmaking
and
karma.
Hardworking people. Like, I wouldn't be trying to fucking reach back and pull up somebody that
you didn't think had the sauce.
Fuck it, or just kind of writes on the week. You know what I mean? These are people that have been fucking grinding and they've earned it and they're fucking good and they work hard. And it just takes time and commitment and camaraderie. Honestly, you need other people. This isn't a business you do on your own.
I think there's a big misconception that if somebody else is successful, that's going to take away from your opportunity.
Right. It's scarcity mindset.
Yeah. But the truth is actually the direct antithesis to that.
Completely.
The more people that you support, the more people around you that are successful, that increases your chances of success.
Oh, of course.
Be supportive and be helpful. And when they say, like, I got to find a PA on this set and I can't pay him anything but minimum wage, even though you're going to be working 25 hours. I know that's illegal, but I'm just saying, like, be that guy. Yeah. Fuck it. I'll do it for free. Let's fucking do this. I'm game.
Well, you're
the chair. What you doing? Like, that's what you're here for. That's the kind of shit you're here for.
Right.
You meet the entire crew. You meet the entire cast. You're a PA, but you're a fucking writer and a director as well. That's where you start, man.
Yeah.
That's where you go.
It's a community mindset.
Yes. And then those people go, what are you working on, Bill? And you're like, well, I got these fucking scripts I'm working on. Well, shit, I'd like to read one. Tell me about it. And you pitch them and they're like, that sounds fucking cool. Is it any good? I don't know. Give me the script,
Yeah. I think you just have to approach everything, even if it's the most basic job, and just give it every single thing you have.
Yeah.
And just be great at it.
That's the other thing we try to do is, no matter if I'm holding the boom mic or whatever, I'm not half-assing it. I'm not asleep with a Twinkie in my mouth. I'm this son of a bitch is out there,
Yeah.
2 inches out of frame, and we're nailing this bitch. Because if I don't do that, that is going to carry over in people's minds as to like what my work ethic's going to be like when I'm in control or when I'm writing a script.
Yeah, of course.
Be a partner with. Well, he's going to be a piece of shit with a Twinkie in his mouth. Okay,
Or
I don't want to work with that guy.
Today, you know, the real cliche is you look around at a bunch of like inspiring, really hungry people, and they're on the set and they're looking at their phones.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a pain in the ass.
Are you kidding me? Like, be present. Like, put everything you have into
I needed this, buddy. And they're like, oh, shit. Great. I'm going to go get it. And you're like, okay, I don't know, man. I don't know. You're going to have to earn it back now, buddy. You're going to earn it back, you know?
That's why some directors have no phones policies on their sets.
It's important, man. It's important.
If I have it, it's fucking off in my pocket. I don't touch it until we get a break or something that I'm like, okay, I got to catch up on 15 emails over lunch or whatever. But it's like, yeah, you gotta be all in. I think that's the main thing, and it'll come. And if you work hard, if you're all in, it's gonna come, man. It will come in one form or another. You won't even know what that form is, but it'll come.
That's huge. Well, guys, I can't thank you enough for giving me all this time and being so generous with describing your backstory and everything. I mean, I've just lost count of the lessons that are in here. I think the listeners are really, really going to dig this a lot. So thank you, guys. Last couple of questions. Were there any books or resources that were really helpful for you guys along the way, either creatively or in terms of, becoming better writers or better directors, or that helped you in terms of your career, in terms of like navigating Hollywood? Is there anything that was formidable book-wise for you, creatively or professionally?
So for me, like the one thing that before Ian and I make a movie, I read Sidney Lumet's Making Movies.
Beautiful.
And then we go out and we watch together the making Hearts of Darkness, Making of Apocalypse.
Nice.
Now. Filmmaker's Apocalypse. And those two pieces of material really set us in the proper mind frame.
That's cool. Another really underrated documentary about making movies is the documentary Behind Easy Riders. It's insane. I don't know if it's an official documentary. It's on the special features, I think, of the Criterion version. And it's just, yeah.
I've probably seen it then, honestly.
Hopper and Fonda were throwing TVs at each other. Every time somebody's getting high, like smoking a joint on set or on screen, they're actually smoking joints. I think they took real acid. Like, it is crazy pants. Yeah, it's awesome though.
Different era, man.
Yeah,
it was a beautiful, wonderful time. And
I'd say here's an interesting story to think about. We would read everything we get our hands on.
Mm-hmm.
Gossip rags, the fucking tabloid. Like, they're not tabloid, but you know what I mean when I say something like Easy Rider, Raging Bull. It's full of anecdotes of, you could say tabloid, type anecdotes about the movie industry and how people got started, what their careers were like, and what their hopes and dreams were, and where they ended up. So those are fucking beautiful to read because like we've gleaned a lot of insight out of a lot of those. And one of them was what's the Waxman's one?
Rebels on the Backlot.
Rebels on the Backlot.
Oh, it's a great one.
We're reading Rebels on the Backlot, and I remember reading this part in there about this woman who was Tarantino and Avery and Craig Hammond's, which was kind of the dynamic trio at the time. Their manager, Catherine James.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember reading about her, and she described her as like a brownie making mother who would like run in with Tarantino and Avery's and Craig's scripts and like throw them down on the table of executives in the middle of meetings and be like, read the script, and then walk like, I'm in the middle of a meeting, and like what the fuck? Like, she's like, I called you 3 times, you didn't answer, so I came over personally. That kind of a woman. But she was also a brownie,
tenacious yet nurturing,
but incredibly loving. Daughter of a preacher, like a badass.
Yeah.
And so I read about her, and I was like, oh my God, Ash, this is the kind of manager we need, And we've been in town 6 months. This is a woman we can understand us. And so I look her up. I'm like, where is Catherine James? And she's got a management company in Burbank, and I'm like, Catherine James.
Find an email.
I start writing her, and I'm like, hey, just read this book. Like, we're big fans of Tarantino and Avery and Hammond and like blah, blah, blah. And never writes me back for that. So a week later, I'm like, all right, Catherine, hey, we just got this movie, Night of the Dog, blah, blah, blah. Got into this festival. Week later. Catherine, hey, how are you? Just checking in. Tell you about Night of the Dog. Got into another festival.
He wrote her every week for about
6 weeks. 6 weeks. I wrote her every week for 6 weeks. Was very positive, upbeat, informational emails talking about either a script we were thinking about working on, or a script we had worked on, or a script we'd written, or
festival success,
a festival we'd won, or something. some review we'd gotten. Check out this review. It's so awesome, or whatever. So after 6 weeks, she finally calls me back, and she's like, "This is Catherine James." And I'm like, "Oh my God." Okay. She calls us. We start talking to her, and she's like, "Let's sit down and talk." I talked to her for like an hour one night on the phone. She calls.
Didn't she want a script, or was that?
And so she goes, "Send me a script. Email it to me." So I emailed her FATMAN. And she reads it, and she goes, "We're sitting down. This is fucking awesome. We're sitting down." So we go to a restaurant, we sit down, and she's literally like fucking old school badass, like long cigarette, like
petite blonde woman,
hot blonde,
the extender in cigarette, and like orders black and blue.
In her 60s now, like
boom.
Tell me about yourself, boys. It's fucking amazing.
So cool.
Every experience you ever want to have. And so we talked to her. She's amazing.
Took us under her wing
For about 2 or 3 years, and repped us, and introduced us to Craig Hammond and Roger Avery.
And really gave us our first steps. Into the business, and taught us a ton, and was a big fan of us, and was just like, "Boys, this is what you fucking do. You got to fucking go, and you got to grind." And taught us that when we got rejected at certain times, that it doesn't fucking matter. Like, that guy's going to be out of the office, out of that fucking position in 6 months anyway. We're going to go right back then, like she was that kind of person. She just believed in us and believed in the writing and believed in all of her clients like that. And it was she was amazing. She ended up passing away of cancer after about 4 years of representation. But when I was writing her for those 6 weeks, that was the problem we were having, is that she was actually fighting cancer for the first time at that point in her career.
Oh, man.
And so 6 weeks in, she had just gone into remission. And I'm sure she'd been fighting it for months, if not a year at that point. But she had gone into remission, and she wrote me back and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about getting back into the business. Like, let's talk, Send me a script, boys."
So cool.
And so we got to hang out with her and know her and love her for fucking 4 years. And it was incredible. She was fantastic, man. And I can't say enough about her as a human being, but she taught us a ton. And that came from reading that book and writing a few fucking emails.
Yeah. And staying on top of the emails too. I mean, that's the other thing. The consistency element is huge. I think a lot of people, but it's a beautiful story. She sounds really wonderful. You're making me want to reread Rebels on the Backlot now.
You should. Find those Catherine James passages. They're worth rereading. They're fantastic.
I will. Well, guys, I mean, this was such a joy. Thank you so much.
Dude, thank you, man.
Real pleasure. All right. Thank you guys, as always, for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, why not share it with your friends and family on social media? Don't forget to follow the show on Instagram at I'm Nick Taylor. That's I am Nick Taylor. And on Twitter at the same handle. Thanks again for listening to The Nick Taylor Horror Show.